Welcome, one and all, across the Alpha Quadrant and beyond to Lower Decks, a Star Trek podcast by Fantastic Geek, your official, unofficial Star Trek podcast. My name is Matt, and joining me, as always, is Pete. Hailing frequencies are open.
I hide behind nothing. Lower Decks, a Star Trek podcast by Fantastic Geek, where episode 209, Wish Douche, comes to you now via Punitive Spiritualism.
Pete, that was some great Klingon pronunciation there. In the English, of course, 3 ships is the name of the episode. And just a bit of fleet news before we launch into Wedge Dudge. Pete, have to note that in this New York Comic Con weekend, there was the Discovery panel yesterday. As we are recording, the Prodigy premiere will be later today, and we're going to podcast all the STU, that Star Trek Universe goodness, tomorrow.
Splitting them up here because they had a little bit of difficulty in terms of selling tickets. I did see that Sunday tickets for today for New York Comic Con sold out, but I did not see for any other day. We have chosen not to attend as the situation still remains precarious, even as fully vaccinated individuals. But so much of this is online. So other than the trailer for Discovery, we were able to watch it all, and we will discuss that tomorrow. Curious, no Lower Decks, but they've made the rounds. Jack Quaid is at New York Comic Con pushing the boys, and when there's news there, there'll be news there.
Absolutely. With that, let's head into the Ready Rundown.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
The Cerritos is on a long haul for 12 hours, so everyone's got time. Our lower deckers are going to hang, just not together since they've all got bridge buddies. Well, everyone except Boimler. Maybe life is better for the Klingons. Meanwhile, on a Klingon Bird of Prey's lower decks, Ma'a is punched awake. He's feeling at helm, and might be in a position to be the new first officer. It's logical. Logical. Avoid death and cower. Ma'a goes to the bridge, the captain and commander in a fight to the death, and the first officer is dead. The job is open to whoever is most impressive today. The captain's targ gets a compliment, which impresses the captain. Ma'a has got to walk the targ until it passes the traitor's leg. It ends up being an honorable movement. The captain is seething, though. Klingons are so weak now. No respect for tradition. Private messages come from, gasp, the Pakleds. The Klingon captain will beam over soon with Ma'a. The captain is using the Pakleds to help send the quadrant into chaos. They beam to the Pakled ship Pakled, and the Pakleds need another Veruvian bomb. They wanted to test the first one, and it exploded, like bombs do. That also would have left Metreon particles, unusual energy. Meanwhile, on a Vulcan cruiser's lower decks, T'Lyn has detected readings on long-range sensors after augmenting them. The readings feel off. So emotional. The captain can't understand why T'Lyn followed her gut using instincts. She explains the radiation is unusual and that she is working on another project. She is punished with silent meditation for such childlike behavior. She goes to meditation but continues to work. T'Lyn notes her crew people should follow less rules. They're like Borg drones sometimes. She's told she has such a relaxed attitude. Meanwhile, Boimler is still looking for a bridge buddy. How about Kay-Shan? Carno in the forest with Myra? Oh no, a reference to Myra is a reference to being overweight. Boimler tries pottery class with Rutherford and Shax, but a mention of Bajor sends the Bajoran into a rage. Put into the clay, Papa Bear. Boims tries out the El Capitan holo program where T'Ana and Tendi are climbing. His hover boots malfunction. Ow. He swings by the captain and Mariner phaser training and mother-daughter fighting, and then crosses paths with Ransom and 2 other officers, all Hawaiians who love Hawaii. Want to hit the holo later? Unless you don't love the islands. But he's not from Hawaii, and Boimler is concerned that he's going to be found out. Still, he shows up to the luau. Mariner and Freeman end up playing Space Clue, but there's been an anomalous reading. They're going to check it out. The Cerritos arrives at the Pakled ship Pakled and the Klingon ship, but both are attacking the Ritos. Available bridge crew arrives, and Boimler tells the other Hawaiians he's not from Hawaii. Neither is the rest of the group. They just wanted to be friends with Ransom, who's not from Hawaii. He's from the moon. Turns out they're all from moons, except Boimler. On the Klingon ship, Ma'a says this scenario is without honor. After all, Klingons sabotaging peace is something that tends not to work out. Meanwhile, on the Pakled clump ship Pakled, the lower deckers there want to eat potatoes. Back to the battle, the Vulcans have arrived with shields up, but shields fading fast. However, T'Lyn has a shield regeneration program. Her instincts tell her it will work. It works, and the Vulcans disable the Pakled ship. On the Klingon bridge, there's a fight for power, a surprisingly well-choreographed fight, culminating with the captain being bitten by his own targ, then kicking it. The animal abuser gets a blade from Ma'a. Make it Captain Ma'a. Time to go home. The Cerritos fires on the Pakleds, and the Pakled ship Pakled warps away. Victory again from the Federation-Vulcan bond that spans the... Oh wait, the Vulcans don't want to chit-chat. Goodbye. Speaking of goodbyes, the Vulcan captain notes that T'Lyn's instincts saved the day, and she's being removed from duty. He thinks her hothead ways would be best on a Starfleet vessel. As for the lower deckers, they wrap in the bar, planning to hang out next time there's free time. But a cadet tugs on Boimler's arm. Can you help me be organized? Let's talk about duties. The real action is on the lower decks. As the episode concludes, we see Borg Cube lower decks. Drones just stand there for the credits.
Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations.
We have that incoming threat analysis, Pete. Let's start by talking about Captain Dorg.
Yes, I love that the conceit of this episode is to take us across the lower decks of these 3 vessels, although it's really 5 vessels when you factor in the Pakled and the Borg at the very end there. But that we've now gotten who was manipulating the Pakleds, giving them presents here, Veruvian bombs, as well as information to manipulate them, shades of obviously Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and hence the conflict with the Klingon lower decker Ma'a.
I think that it was obviously in line with what we've seen from Klingons for 100 years. I was a little surprised that we had the grand reveal in this episode and not in the season finale. It makes me wonder, to what degree next week is there still more Pakled threat or Pakled conclusion, whatever that might be. But again, just kind of completely in line with Klingon motivations. And I guess I also appreciated that the show had Dorg note that the Pakleds are hungry for power, which on the one hand, I kind of knew, instinctually, but it was great to kind of have that repeated because it's like, yes, they do want all this power and they do want all this respect and they want without actually doing, which of course takes us to the Pakled clump ship Pakled and its captain Rebner. Maybe there was a discussion to call him Captain Pakled, although I get why that might have been one step too far. But Pete, your thoughts on Rebner, who didn't quite understand why the bomb only exploded once.
Right, and that he's got lower decks of then they're just Pakleds sitting in front of food stores.
Pakled potatoes.
Who get hungry and others recommend to eat and are viewed as smart.
It was just, I don't know. Both threats were delightful in their own ways. Pete, I'm going to call an audible here. It's not on our list. Is the Vulcan way of doing things kind of a threat? If not to T'Lyn, then had they shut down T'Lyn, then there'd be no more Cerritos, and there'd be an escalation of war, and so on and so forth. So Vulcans, should they be on the list?
Taken one step further, the jerky way in which they save the Cerritos and then like, oh, no more communication required. See ya.
I love that.
Yeah,
To me, that was just so on brand with the Vulcans. Because let's not forget, not that I think anybody forgets, but I think there's kind of the default Vulcans have no emotions, period. And that's never been the case. It's that they have pushed the emotions way down. And that's something that, Pete, I'm going to say it, the JJ films kind of re-highlighted that as an aspect of Vulcan culture. So like it's just completely in line with the Vulcans who have no emotions but are arrogant enough to be like, great, battle over, don't need help, hang up. The whole thing was a delight.
and to force a transfer to Starfleet like it's some kind of dumping ground, and then to Lynn to leave the room to push back on that with the old "live long and prosper, sir."
Um, well, Pete, I think that we should talk more about T'Lyn just after this scan for theories. So, Pete, now that we're officially scanning our sensors for theories, discussion online, I think just discussion in one's mind as you're done with the episode. We love all our main lower decker, our Starfleet 4 and the supporting cast, and then the supporting cast. Do we have a trajectory where T'Lyn is headed to one of the lesser boats of the fleet, the Cerritos?
I I mean, for certain, I just wonder whether or not it had happened in the next episode. These beliefs, feelings, instincts that get labeled by the Vulcan cruiser Cheval's captain as impulsivity. And hey, we're not going to send you back home. Instead, you're going to Starfleet. I mean, why can't she? The trajectory at the end of this episode that Freeman's got to get in touch with Starfleet Command to discuss with the Klingon High Council. We've talked all season the potential for her promotion. She's dealt quite a bit with the Packlids. I think it all lines up.
It'll be interesting too. Like, here we are 19 episodes into this series. I think there's enough of a resume to say, do they have an eye towards multi-episode arcs? Absolutely. But are they beholden to drop a hint in episode 6, develop it in episode 7, boom, in episode 8, now it's the big threat? They're not that, I'll say, slavish. I mean, I don't mind episodic, or I don't mind serial storytelling at all, but they're not that slavish to it. The nature of what they're doing is a little bit more standalone, a little bit more like, hey, this is our one that's going to be the crazy, last week, crazy different simulations. It's not quite alternate realities, but we're going to do a whole bunch of different crazy scenarios and not really worry about, where's Mariner and Mom up to, that sort of thing. In regards to T'Lyn, I think of Kayshawn, who introduced as this brand new character and obviously taking over for Shax, and then Shax comes back and we say, well, what about Kayshawn? What about Kayshawn? Just to several episodes later, oh, there's Kayshawn in the background. A couple episodes after that, oh, Kayshawn is still a bridge officer. Right, there's probably 3 or 4 shifts, not ships, shifts on the Cerritos, so maybe Shax is A shift and Kayshawn is B shift, and they can both be in charge of security when they're on the bridge, that sort of thing. So again, back to T'Lyn fully. Is it a next week thing? Is it just, episode 304, T'Lyn is back? Both are possible on this show.
I think we'll definitely see more of her. I like the pseudo serialized nature of what they do. Would it help to know like what exactly Kayshawn's responsibility is? He's security, he's a bridge officer, so is Shax. Are they splitting duties? Is he his number 2 in that regard? I mean, it would definitely help to have that spelled out.
And I think if nothing else, it speaks to how well the show gets you on board with these characters. I mean, there hasn't been a ton of screen time for Kayshawn. There's been less time for T'Lyn, and the fact that here we are, we're spending time saying, "Oh man, that lady who saved the day then got fired. I hope everything's okay, and I hope she can hang out with our lower decks friends again soon, or for the first time, be in an episode with our lower decks friends soon." It just speaks to how great this episode is, how great this show is. I mean, Pete, we're talking theories, so let me ask you this. Have you ever falsely claimed that you were from Hawaii?
Oh, all the time.
That was great. I mean, again, it's largely played for Boimler needs a home this episode. He needs an emotional home. Okay. And it's an opportunity to show him not fitting in because he's telling this lie and so on and so forth. But then you even get the humanizing elements of they're all doing it because they all want to connect. And then they make the real connection of the moon thing. And it's like, there's the comedy of we're back to where we began, which is Boimler's on the outside looking in. But it's also along the way, it's like, oh man, Ransom is so put together in every, professionally, personally, in terms of his relationships, romantic and otherwise, fit guy, commander in Starfleet and all that. Back when he was just Ensign, he just wanted to be friends with people and, blah, 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 the whole Hawaii thing. Again, it just speaks to how this really, really is a characters first kind of show.
Yeah, and what throws it over the top is that the alien character has been claiming to be from Hawaii. Now, does that make sense in this time in Starfleet? Absolutely. Could have been born there, could have lived there. And then he's the one to say how insensitive it is that Boimler would pretend to be from a moon.
Yeah, I mean, it's the show on that edge between reality and farce that just works. We've talked many times before about it. Is there an opportunity, whether it's a short trek or whatever, where you get a live action Lower Decks? And I think for a lot of people, the actors are there, like just in terms of, the actors look like who they are voicing, and you could I'll say easily do it. I mean, I'm sure it would be, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to get even a 15-minute production together, but it's like it's there for the taking. That said, there continues to be something about this show that is best in animation. Pete, I'll even do you one better for those who listen to us on the Pop Culture Podcast feed. This is the best animated episode that we have podcasted this week.
That says a lot.
And yeah, that's up against, for those who don't listen to our Marvel podcast, that's up against the season finale of What If. This is a better animated show. This has better emotional connection and just more fun.
On the lines of T'Lyn popping back up, that Ma'a has taken command rightfully of the Klingon bird of prey, Ch'ta, and is going back to talk to the High Council. I'd really like to see the Deep Space Nine-ification of Lower Decks, where we get a staple of other characters that kind of rotate in and out.
That would be fun. Again, Pete, I'll invoke my least loved Star Trek series of the Kurtzman era in short treks. There's the place for that. If you want to say, no, it's here, I'm Mike McMahon, and here's the argument for as to why this was a nice kind of one-off and an amusing way to tell a whole bunch of jokes and to advance kind of the geopolitical plot of the season. Heck, if not to kind of hurry things up and say, all right, now we're almost close, now we're 25 minutes away from resolving the threat. Fine. And here's why we're not going to do a rotating cast. Then my goodness, throw me a 6-minute continuation of Captain Ma'a on short treks. Show me maybe not quite 6 minutes of on the Packlet end. Show me more of the Vulcan ship, or show me T'Lyn transferring, whatever it is. Great characters, and there's a place to put them.
How about the Ritos shirt, Matt? When can I order one of those?
I know on one of our old, I guess it was season 2, Discovery podcasts, where you asked a similar tongue-in-cheek question about the disco shirt, and I don't remember whether you had said it with knowledge or in a similar tone, but it was, while we were talking, I checked out StarTrek.com/shop, and it was there. So let me do that now, StarTrek.com/shop, because clearly it was, at the very least, it was a bit of having fun with the disco shirt.
And really the first time they've ever referenced Discovery.
Yeah. And let's see, Pete, there are shirts that read Nickelodeon Star Trek Prodigy, as well as mugs that say Nickelodeon Star Trek Prodigy. I think they're really keen on the Prodigy stuff by the looks of it.
So those kids and their cartoons and mugs, right?
Absolutely. Well, and also the Star Trek Prodigy key art Sherpa blanket. Not a joke. Yeah, I'm looking at this going, where's the Ritos shirt? Because I wouldn't. Let me this way. I don't know. The adult Prodigy shirt, which just says Nickelodeon Star Trek Prodigy, little steep. I'm sorry, adult kids bundle, $27.95. So that's not too bad for two shirts. You tell me I can get a Ritos shirt for $18. They're probably going to bang you for shipping, but I would be interested. So where is it? Somebody needs to I don't know whom, at Mike McMahon and say, hey, I heard on at Fantastic Geek that there's no Ritos shirt. Where can we get them from? If not homemade or, the various t-shirt making websites, where can we get something that's official?
And send them to us.
There's that too. Mike McMahon, you can be in touch anytime you want.
I particularly appreciated the go at the epic Trek film style music in this episode.
Well, I would add to the music, the battle scene had me thinking back to the Battle of the Binary Stars in Discovery, where it was like the first time you saw ships actually moving a lot in a battle. I mean, I know we've seen it in Star Trek before, but just the notion of like, hey, Cerritos, you're just sitting there. Like, I get it's animation. It's also kind of the next gen model style and all that. But can we go full to Impulse and start flying circles around? But that notwithstanding, the battle is great. The fight between the Klingon captain and Ma'a is surprisingly well kind of choreographed, and I think they land on the right side of emotions when the Targ gets kicked and you're like, that guy just kicked his dog. Like, that makes me feel a little bit better, 10 seconds later when he gets a very big blade up his gut and killed. Like, emotionally, blocking wise, it's all really great. This is, as I say many times before, this is, a live action episode with just some of the live action boiled off of it.
And the use of the trope that we've got people in R&R situations, that they're in holodecks, that they're, throwing pottery, and that everybody is summoned at a red alert to their duty stations. You've got the helm officer who was skiing or whatever it was in cold weather gear. They've done this in live action, but to have it all go on and to show it in such an animated comedic way, they really top themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's leaning into the notion that they're spending 12 hours in the middle of nowhere. So really, 95% of the people can have the day off. Would you go to the trouble to make 20 different costumes for a live action episode? Probably not, but you can go to the trouble here because it's going to take you infinitely less time to draw. Pete, I think I spied dude in medieval dress and things like that. Like, you go have your fun on the holodeck, dude. You do you. Pete, what else is on your Centaurs?
Did you get a Sonequa Martin Green vibe out of the one unnamed lower decker on the Vulcan ship?
Pete, there was a certain energy in her voice that seemed evocative of SMG. I would assume if it was actually her doing the voicing, there would have been some razzmatazz to it. But
yeah.
But
I checked the There's not even a name for the character. I checked the voice cast, nothing. I wondered too if they may be like, oh, this would be really fun, and we're on lockdown, and you could do this while you're on the set of your show filming season 4.
You know what? Let's bring more crossovers like that, because that notion is a ton of fun.
Lastly, Matt, will our lower deckers move up?
I mean, that's kind of been the question for these last 2 seasons. I guess you could still be a lower decker as a lieutenant junior grade. Does it somewhat does it remove the bar from Cheers to say now the lower deckers don't go to bed across from each other each night or wake up together each morning, or I'm going to change into that Hawaiian shirt while you put on your, while you chill out before mom calls you to go play Space Clue. I guess that's a long way of saying I think there's a story argument to be made that they don't need to move them up. Now, that's with the knowledge that a 3rd season is underway. By the end of the 3rd season, do you need to either promote them or sit and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe the whole crew is being put on probation for a year because of the mistake we made? Like, you kind of need to start to excuse it soon. I just don't know that it's this season. With that, let's go to Hailing Frequencies.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
We take to Twitter where a poll was run. Which ship would you like to lower deck on? Pete, a surprising 15.2% said the Borg ship. I guess they're really great working on a team. 18.2% said Vulcan, 6.1% said Klingon, and 60.6% said Starfleet. Also got some replies here. Of this episode, James is Sagacious, that's at Big Killen on Twitter, said, probably my favorite so far. The show is funny, plain and simple. The Moon/Hawaii bit made me laugh out loud. Also, Twitter needs a 5th poll option because the pack-lit lower decks were lit. At Gabrielle Ruiz as live-action T'Lyn and Ensign Castro now. So I think that's a great Pete, you might know Gabrielle Ruiz as Valencia on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Pete, we're all saying we want to see some of these adventures turned into live action, so make it happen, Mike McMahon. We heard from Jackie Wolf as well, at Jackie Wolf on Twitter. Lower Decks managed to produce a great episode in itself while setting up future plot points. So fun to see the interior workings on some other ships. The way the animation team rendered the exterior of the Vulcan ship was especially impressive. I feel the need to bring up something that's been bothering me, however. I've noticed a few instances of body shaming on lower decks, most recently involving Boimler mixing up his Temerian and inadvertently accusing Kay-Shan of gaining weight. Can we not Star Trek on P+? Pete, I will add to it, the line in Temerian about gaining weight involved the name Myra, which made me think of former after-show host Matt Myra, who I think has been upfront in saying he's not the most svelte guy out there. I enjoy a chuckle as much as anybody else, but Matt Myra was not done well by Star Trek, and now there's maybe a Matt Myra joke about him, whether it's looks or and then somehow involving weight. I don't know. Your thoughts there?
Do better. Do better.
We heard from Spider-Ham Lincoln, that's at TessLC139, who says, really fun episode. Was this 3 ships? What a unique concept to replicate itself into other Trek races. As the great Brad Boimler once said, the real action begins on the lower decks. Spider-Ham Lincoln also says, we need a spin-off called Borg 90182 about angst-ridden lower deck drones as they transition from tertiary adjunct to primary tactical. And he, of course, references that 90182 is the Los Angeles postal code. I actually had the same thought when they showed it there with the number, and I think that while I would welcome the teasing out of that joke more, I think that maybe the joke being, get ready for the most angst-ridden Borg lower deck story you're ever going to get. Beep, boop, boop, beep,
Yes, that they're all in the regeneration cubes there.
A couple more tweets here. First one from Karina. That's at Karina GW. I very much want a Borg lower deck screensaver. Madeline Eaton, that's our pal Maddie from LA. I'm all in for T'Lyn joining the Ritos. And Sarcastic Canadian, that's at Sarcastic Can. I assume that's what they're doing, introducing her as a new main/supporting character. So, Pete, like they used to say on another space show, so say we all. Sounds like we want more T'Lyn.
Absolutely.
Well, Pete, this entire adventure made possible by those who support us on patreon.com/fantasticgeek. What say you?
Get yourself over to patreon.com/fantasticgeek today. All sorts of exclusives behind that door that takes just $1 a month to get yourself behind, but you place the value on the podcast. And if you can't contribute this month, get yourself over to Apple Podcasts, where you can leave us a rating in seconds, a review in a couple minutes.
And Pete, let's keep the Star Trek conversation going ahead of our NYCC podcast tomorrow and ahead of the Lower Deck Season 2 finale next week. How can people be in touch with you on Twitter?
You can find me at Peter, Pieter, J. Ketelar, Ketelaar, 12,091 followers. Can't be wrong.
And while I'm personally on Twitter as Looking Back Lost, do be in touch with the podcast. Comment on fantasticgeek.com. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Gmail, where we are Fantastic Geek as well. But wait, Pete, there's more.
Facebook/fantasticgeek.com. Get yourself there today.
With that, Pete, looking very forward on this feed and the Pop Culture Podcast feed, talking about Star Trek at NYCC tomorrow. Of course, on the Pop Culture Podcast feed next weekend, wrapping up What If, for the season, and then the season finale, as mentioned, for Lower Decks next weekend as well. With that, I will say adios to all the listeners and give you the final word.
Avoid death and cower.
Never fails to take my breath away.
I wish I could kiss her and squeeze her.
Excuse me?